And before I get into it too far, one of the things, as an architect, as a planner, one of the things that I like to be sure that we do when we look at long-range planning for a campus, and we've done a number of community college and university campus plans over the last, I've done a number over the last decade, is to not only look at that kind of broad, flexible scale, knowing that a master plan will change as time progresses, but also to be somewhat positional, to really to push just a little bit, to get people to think outside the box. If we don't do that, what happens is we get responses like, well, give me something like I have, but just a little bigger. So some of the things you'll see here, I won't call them confrontational, but they were trying to push outside the box a little bit. Ideas to start a conversation that if and when the college decides to proceed on any of these, they'll have a framework within which they can design a functional building. They'll have the opportunity at that point to really dive in deep with the students, with the faculty, with all the constituents who are going to really interact with that building and go into the details then. So while this is flexible, we did try to make sure it was provocative. Give you a little context. This is an aerial photograph of, I'm trying to recall what it was called back then. It was not even Henry Ford Community College yet. This is what it looked like. You can probably recognize a few of the buildings. This is
Pagoda.
The pagoda. And the entertainment of the 1960s. One of the things that happens in a master plan is nothing really stands still. We would love for everything to stop while we go through the planning, so we only have to really address one thing. But before we started planning and during planning, there was a lot of work going on, a lot of things to deal with, the fact that we're looking at an institution with buildings that are from the 1960s. Facility improvements, this building, the renovations that took place a few years ago for the Welcome Center, the new science building addition, if you get a chance to go over to the liberal arts building, the modifications to the lobby that have really changed how students interact with that space. So these were things that have happened continuously while we've been having these conversations. A lot of them are important, like roof repairs, those sorts of things. And then some of the projects, just a myriad of projects that are underway for 2015, including some that have actually come up since we last met with the board to preliminarily present this master plan. So the first step in the process is discovery. And one of the things we want to do, and this was one of the drivers of the master plan, was to connect needed repairs, needed maintenance, with opportunities that came up because of changes in pedagogy, changes in the way students are approaching college, even changes in the way the library functions on a modern college campus. First thing we took a look at was the technical stuff, the behind the scenes, facility conditions. We looked at a number of facilities, not all of them, but really the high priority ones, and just those alone were worth about $140 million if you were to replace them all. We took a look at all the major building systems, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, the exterior skin of the building, life safety, really looked at things that were needed to be dealt with immediately and things that were probably going to be issues within a few years to help build the framework for the plan. The report that came out of that, and probably 150 pages long, took a look at each one of these major buildings and really boiled it down to what issues need to be dealt with now and how bad are they compared to the value of the building, and then what do we see coming up, what's potential. Looking at the liberal arts building, it's worth about $30 million to build a building like it nowadays. If you take all the issues that we observed that are high priority, divide that into the value of the building, you get what's called a facility condition index. It's 10%. The national standards for these sorts of things say if you're 10% or higher, your building is considered in poor condition. Not because it's not been well maintained, but because things wear out. If you have a 50-year-old furnace in your house, raise your hand. That kind of a thing. And thankfully, I've never had anybody raise their hand. Those are the kind of issues that these buildings are dealing with. When we look out over the next 5 or so years, the number of potential things that could go wrong gets up to almost 30% of the value of the building. That was a big factor in a lot of the decisions that came later during the planning process. The library, similarly, not quite so much. The Learning Resource Center, and a lot of these things have been dealt with because, as I said, renovations took place right at the beginning of the master plan to bring the early college high school program on campus. Took a look at the bookstore, took a look at the gym, took a look at the facilities building, all of which are dealing with similar issues of their age. And then most recently, the Fine Arts building and the Technology building. So when we look at the whole thing, the facility condition index for short term, 6%, that's pretty good. That's pretty typical, actually, on most community college and university campuses. We look forward out 5 or so years, we're getting close to that 20% range in aggregate for the entire campus. So that, again, drove, if you're going to fix it to improve the condition of the building, now's the time to think about how to improve how the building works for the students and the faculty. And just some random snapshots of just typical issues. Little water washout here, technology building, flooring issues, concrete that just is showing its age. It's starting to spall. Code things that weren't an issue back in the 1960s. Slightly open handrails. That's obviously you wouldn't do that nowadays. Just finishes that get a lot of abuse and a lot of wear. On the liberal arts building, the concrete on the windows, the sealants are all running into issues based on age. Cracking and shifting foundations. This is one of my favorite. This is the air conditioning chiller unit that's on the roof of the liberal arts building. The cooling tower, and it's original, and it's again kind of due for work. Water coming in all sorts of strange and unique places, causing some little bit of rust. So we took a look at the facility condition. We were also requested to take a look at utilization. How well are all the academic spaces being used? Really looking at schedule, looking at ownership, looking at size compared to the way the rooms are laid out, and essentially helping to understand how much more needs to be built, if any. We took a look at 3 factors. We looked at assignable square feet per student, how much space is allocated for each student, and there's a good range to be in. We looked at student station occupancy, how many people are in those seats when the class is in session, and also weekly room hours, how often is the room used in a week. Friday classes are omitted because of just the way colleges and universities work. If you include Friday because of the way it hits in the schedule, it throws all the numbers out of whack. So we looked at those separately. And we also, one of the big assumptions was looking at, theoretically, you could schedule a class 60 hours a week comfortably. I would say comfortably, at the maximum. Comfortably is less than that. 15 hours a day. In reality, that's just never been the case, really anywhere. So we took a look at classrooms across the campus, all the buildings. We saw some where the rooms were in use a lot. At the liberal arts building, they're in use quite a bit. But 32 hours a week is actually considered pretty good. The seats are pretty full. 73% of the seats are full. That's really good. But the classrooms were only 21 square feet per student, which you think, wow, 4 by 5, that's pretty good per student. When you see a picture in a minute, you'll see that actually, there's all this space that's involved as well. So that was another thing that had to be looked at, is how well did they work for flexible, active learning situations that really move beyond the stand and deliver lecture like this. So some of the findings when we looked at that, typically they're not undersized except for a couple of those buildings, liberal arts being one of them. There's a high demand for classrooms of a certain size that fits very nicely with the way the college likes to schedule. Average classroom usage is below the desired norm. Average lab usage is below 20 hours a week. Labs are tough to get to that same level as classrooms. This is actually lower, and this includes all teaching labs on campus, not just computer or science. And when we looked at Friday, of 120 rooms on campus, only 60 are in use, and on Saturday, only 35 are in use. What we saw out of that, the conclusions we drew were there's a lot of opportunity for flexibility in offering things in new ways because there's a lot of space. There's a lot of space that's available. That line you see up there is the classroom usage throughout the week by hour. 3:30 to 5 o'clock. Nationwide, that's pretty typical. You get a real big drop. But really busy mid-morning, and it peaks up again on community college campuses around 6 o'clock. If you look at the parking lots over by the campus proper, you can see that's the case. The bars you see in the bottom are Fridays, so there's definitely opportunity here for really thinking about how the space is used. A lot of those spaces just don't possess the qualities needed, the technology needed for 21st century education. There's capacity for alternative ways of delivering, both time-wise but also pedagogically. One of the things that came up during the master planning process was the idea of the super lab. Individualized instruction that allows the student to come in. Open entry, open exit is another term for it, that you get to come in, kind of build your curriculum at the pace that works for you around a central lab space or a central classroom space that has a lot of support areas nearby. It's being done in the welding program right now, and it's being evaluated for rollout to many more programs. So this completely changes utilization in ways that we don't even know how to predict yet as somebody who's outside the institution. So that really left us with one goal: make the classrooms flexible enough to accommodate that and whatever else comes along. This is the challenge of 20 square feet per student. It's a little close to the front. You can't, there's no flexibility. There's no way to really work this classroom differently to allow students to have breakout sessions. The dining room over in the student center, it's light-filled now that it's got a glass roof. Light-filled, wonderful space. Acoustically, it's a little challenged. A lot of hard surfaces, really hard to hear anything other than a lot of noise. And every seat's essentially the same. Again, a lot of opportunity is what we see. When we look at the library space, this is the pre-21st century library model. It's where knowledge was stored because there was no other way to store it. Now, with technology, with other ways of accessing this, and the need for students to have space to both focus and study, but also collaborate and work on projects, there's a big opportunity for the library to really reimagine itself. Great space in the technology building, a lot of opportunity here. One of the things that recently came up was grant funding for, I think, $4.5 million worth of equipment to really upgrade a lot of the technology labs. So this is another example of something that's happening simultaneously with the master plan and has already changed the way we approached it. And then in some of the newer buildings like the science building, the kinds of space that students we're finding are drawn to. It's active, there are quiet spaces, there are group spaces, a lot of seating, a lot of power, a lot of electricity, wireless, all the things that they really say they need in order to do what they want to do when they're not in class, really extending that learning outside the classroom time. Even into the Learning Resource Center, this is right after the renovation to create classrooms for the early college program in the area that used to be student services. This building at the other end, really, again, this was reimagining how student services were delivered and how the space needed to react to that. So there was a lot of conversation, a lot of data mining, interviews, with departments, with department heads, deans, facilities, students, faculty, to find out what works really well, what isn't working really well, and the kinds of things that are missing that need to happen in order to transition the college. We met with people that represented all of these different groups, again, underpinned by the Master Facility Planning Committee. And one of the things that was done fairly early was guiding principles were developed. And essentially, the goal of these is to complete the statement, this plan to be considered successful, it must. And these are the things that came out of it. They've been edited a bit, modified as we moved forward. But these were really the litmus test. If any plan idea was brought forward that didn't fit with all of these at some level, we took it back to the drawing board and questioned it. Why doesn't it? You know, it kept us from doing things like a jacuzzi in every office. Not that that came up, but if it did, bring it to this and ask that question, and it would probably have gone away. So first and foremost, the master plan needed to support the Henry Ford College strategic plan. The idea that it's future-driven means we needed to plan flexibly enough to support the strategic planning effort that was happening at exactly the same time as the master plan. We needed to create environments supportive of student success. That's modernize the learning environments, consolidate student support, student academic support, make learning visible. Give the students something where they can showcase what they're doing outside of the classroom, outside of the lab. And then definitely flexibility that allows rapid change in the classroom and the other academic spaces, adaptability over time, that in 5 years you don't look back and go, what were we thinking? And then fluidity. And the idea of fluidity is the ability to transition from one activity to the other easily and quickly. The last thing you want to do is tell the students, get into a group and work, and then spend 10 minutes moving furniture. So it's thinking about some of those things at the master plan level. Another guiding principle was to attract and retain students. Find ways to activate student life on campus, engage the students with their learning, with their student life, make places that make them want to be here, and then create intuitive movement. One of the programs that's already happened is improving the signage on campus, clarifying it, simplifying it, and really improving navigation on foot. Promote an identifiable Henry Ford College community. Look for a common language that can be made visible on the buildings, on the site. Celebrate the programs. Celebrate what the students are doing, and then connect them. Look for opportunities where arts and sciences, where the liberal arts and the fine arts can come together. How can the master plan support technology working with culinary? How can it support nursing working with science? So it's looking for ways to really create interdisciplinary growth. And then connecting technology, space, and pedagogy. Technology recommendations, and there is a technology master plan that's already complete, needed to be robust. It needed to be real-world environments. And that ties back to the super lab idea. And it needed to be based around an activity. And the way we put it is, the noun of technology is not what's important. It will change. The verb is what's important. What you do is what's really important. The technology needs to be there to support what you do. And then last but not least, be cost-effective and sustainable. And sustainability in this case really goes beyond just green. Maintainable, inviting, exciting, connected to the community, connected to industry. Look for opportunities for high-impact, low-cost projects that can really excite the campus community and ideally excite donors. Make sure that this is something that is doable. The last thing we want is to have the book sit on a shelf. Be efficient about the way it is developed, and then find ways that that can enhance revenue and stabilize revenue for the institution. Some of the big moves on campus. We wanted to enhance movement throughout the campus. Find ways to clarify how you move from north to south and vice versa. It's still kind of confusing. And there's a few areas where the buildings kind of leave you feeling a little hidden. Emphasize program synergies. And again, that gets to technology, library, liberal arts, and science, what connects together well. Encourage activity and interaction. Create spaces for students to be outside when they can be outside. And then create that identity and strengthen the campus connections from the main campus to this North Campus area. So the master plan is typically broken into 3 phases: short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And as you move towards the long-term, things get a little fuzzier, a little less defined, because frankly they will change before you get to 2025. One of the first goals was to really look at reimagining the technology building, support some of the new integrated programs, celebrate the centers of excellence. This is getting things outside the classroom and really putting learning on display. Create those multi-purpose super labs, promote student collaboration, and then again, strengthen program connections. Look at those STEM programs, how they connect with liberal arts, how they connect with fine arts. When you're doing engineering projects, what part of that is art? And what part of art is engineering? And what similarities do those programs have? And how can you take advantage of the fact that those 2 buildings are really close to each other? And then, most importantly in this case, resolve deferred maintenance. Part of the building is newer, part of the building it dates to the 1960s, and both sections need to be looked at. So what came out of that was recommendations for potential additions for the SimEd program, and I'm going to mess up the acronym. Center for Integrated Manufacturing Education. There we go. Okay. And the super labs. And this again ties into the grant. That alone has changed how we're having to approach this. Potentially infill one of the courtyards, which is underutilized, to create that space for the super labs. Renovate the existing building. Create collaboration space. That image you saw of the science building where the students were in the corridor, there's no place like that in the tech building. So create those opportunities. Modernize the learning environments. Find ways to make those spaces usable for different things. Improve the building envelope, interiors, and systems. And one of the things you'll see here is the amount of renovation, the potential addition, and the dollar amount. These are educated dart tosses. Given that we haven't designed the building yet, we haven't met with people to go into the real detail, these numbers are rough estimates. But for a project like this, 30 to 33, 35 million is not for the complete project is not out of the ordinary. What's changed on this is there needs to be a short-term project to get all the equipment that's coming within the year into the building and operational now. So it's looking at the long term, but really looking at what has to happen immediately to make that work. So that really is changing this up literally as we speak. One of the other short-term issues in creating that space that works for all programs on campus is looking at the library, looking at student academic support. There's a library, Learning Success Center, career services, counseling, the bookstore, a number of other programs from honors to civic engagement, study abroad, that all exist near each other. In a lot of cases, are somewhat independent. The student, from a departmental point of view, doesn't really have an interest in what's going on behind the scenes. They would like somebody to assist them to be successful, to mentor them to be successful. The library, if we really rethink how it's used, has the opportunity to be that neutral space on campus where that kind of thing can happen. So combining all of those elements, support elements, into an engagement center, and then really looking at how all those could connect together. The tight connection between the library and the Learning Success Center, the tight connection between career services and counseling and engagement, and even looking at the bookstore. Where it sits right now, the loading dock is the first thing you see when you come to campus. The facilities building is the second thing you see when you come to campus from the north. How can that be reimagined to really create an exciting, welcoming entry from that main parking lot? Looking at the bookstore moving is part of that. So with the library, reallocate floor space for quiet and collaborative studies, separate where people need to be quiet to where people are going to be conversing and working with student engagement. Distribute computers throughout. Get them out of the lab space and get them everywhere in the building so students have access where they are. Get electricity everywhere in the building as well. Bring in the student services, learning success, which is already in the building, but strengthen that connection. Bring in that engagement center. Bring in the outreach, counseling, and career services, and then bring the bookstore, not shown on this drawing, in to connect that to where the students already are. Again, this is pretty much most, at this stage, all renovation, probably a $10 to $13 million project. Just some examples of what spaces like this could look like. Student collaborative space, agile technology, mobile furniture, whiteboards, whiteboards, whiteboards. The ability to have a number of study rooms where you can schedule, where they're non-scheduled, really rethinking how the students interact with the computers, allowing them to work individually, bring their own machine in, get together and work in groups. Rethinking the study carrel. I mean, these are, again, design ideas, but things that are an important part of the success of the project, and providing spaces for students to even practice presentation skills. So that's the recommended short-term project, and we're going to take these before the board, and they're going to help kind of refine the steps and inform us what order things really need to happen in. The next one is, midterm, is the liberal arts building. Update the learning environment, embed the student activities including food, including student groups, student orgs, where the students already are, instead of having to have them go to the building where those things are put. Bring the faculty together from numerous locations on campus into this building. Promote collaboration, again, put learning on display, strengthen those interdisciplinary programs, and then improve the efficiency of campus operations. And that really gets to the heating and cooling systems, which a lot of it runs out of this building, need to be updated. So we approached this from a number of options. The first was keep it where it is. Renovate it, either repair it or renovate it. It creates a nice green space. If you clean that green space up to the west of that building, it potentially creates a nice green space between that and the student center when you really rethink that sunken area, which needs work, a lot of work. It will require a shutdown during construction. The limitations of the building still remain. The building's not getting any bigger in this case. Just repairing it is $9 million, just to make it an old-looking building and an old-style building that functions. You just put a new engine in your 1968 Beetle. To completely renovate the building is probably $22 million. And you're still stuck with the limitations of a concrete structure that you can't modify easily. So the classroom proportions are going to be tough to work with. What does that look like? Really rethinking that green space in front and the connection to the student services in the back, because that's where most of the students are. Another alternative was construct a new facility and potentially connect it to the fine arts building, really tying those two programs together. One of the benefits is it could create space for more gallery space, larger pre-function space for theater use. Creates a much stronger front to the campus coming from the north and from the south. It also creates the opportunity for an art and technology walk, and I'll touch on that in a minute. And then gives the opportunity to relocate faculty offices, because it would be a larger building than the existing one. Get the faculty offices out of the Learning Technology Center, out of different places on campus, bring them together in the liberal arts building. About 130,000 square feet. $42 million for that new construction, somewhere in that range. What does that look like on the campus? It looks like that. And what it does is it reimagines the front entry from the north, and where the old space used to be, creates really a traditional campus quad, opens that area up, and eliminates a lot of the narrow spaces that currently exist that are pinch point. The other thing you'll see here is the old liberal arts building, the old Learning Technology Center, and all of those functions move into this building. Two very inefficient buildings that have a lot of maintenance issues. Those maintenance issues go away. So there's 12, between those two, probably $12 million worth of repair work that doesn't have to happen. And it relocates facilities and away from the heart of campus. No offense to anyone if you're here from facilities. It's just not the thing that students want to see when they first come in from their car. So what that looked like, and we presented both options, and this was the direction that the committee selected and that the board thought was the way to look at this for the midterm projects. Share a common gallery, lobby space, create a variety of different size flexible classrooms and learning environments. Again, really emphasize student collaboration space, bring the faculty in, upgrade the heating and cooling for the entire campus during the same time, and bring student life and student organization into the building where most of the students are. The other benefit this has is, as I said before, you've now taken liberal arts and put it really at the heart between technology, the library, health, science, fine arts. It really becomes that hub that all the students already are interacting with, and all the interdisciplinary options kind of grow out of that. It's a little hard to see. If you look right here, here, and here, and if you walk it, if you go and walk it, you'll see where I'm talking about, because these spaces already exist. There are little nooks that exist behind the Fine Arts Building that have a lot of opportunity between that and technology, the technology building, to create outdoor studios, outdoor art gardens, to enliven a space that right now is not a very inviting space, because frankly, the sidewalk that runs through here right now dead ends into a brick wall into the parking lot for facilities. A lot of really neat opportunity to create something really unique there and connect those two programs. Potentially as part of that, or something that could follow that, would be renovating the Fine Arts Building, upgrade it, upgrade the systems, re-energize the public spaces, upgrade the classrooms and art studio labs, showcase the student work now in an area that's going to have a lot of students moving through it. Strengthen those program connections, and again, resolve a number of deferred maintenance issues. This actually ties back in more to the liberal arts building, but some of the kinds of spaces that you might see in a place like that, putting that classroom on display, creating both academic but also social spaces in that area. Really rethinking the flexibility of how classrooms are used and even where teachers can stand while they're delivering a lecture, providing spaces for students to have quiet conversations that don't necessarily require them going through the back halls into a faculty office. And then look for any opportunity you can to create these little study nooks in the building, any found space where this kind of thing can happen. Again, technology, whiteboard, power, and tables. So as part of that Fine Arts Building renovation, actually I kind of covered all that, create that outdoor studio area. 75,000 square feet, it surprised me it's bigger than I thought when you look at it. About $8.5 million worth of renovation work to bring that up to standard. Also in the midterm, with the growth of the culinary program, really create space for state-of-the-art culinary program. Remembering, student services has now moved out of that, or student activities has now moved out of this building to liberal arts. This is happening after that. So it's freed up space for the culinary arts program to grow in the future. Improve the usability of the dining room, really make it a multi-function space, better acoustics, better ability to have different types of seating, opportunity to really improve the visibility of this building from Evergreen. Improve food choices for students. Even looking at, when you free some space up, can you create entrepreneurial opportunities? Can you look for ways to allow students and entrepreneurs to bring their services, bring their food, to almost incubate ideas in a space like this? And create a space where the entire hospitality program can be consolidated. As that program grows, there is an opportunity also with the Learning Technology Center now gone to grow to the north. It would allow programs to expand, create that culinary incubator, relocate the restaurant, potentially creating a demonstration kitchen area, then renovate the existing building to improve food service and teaching lab space, go through all the maintenance issues that have to be dealt with. The combined work here, we're looking at $10 to $12 million of renovation plus new addition. And if you look at the schedule at the back, we're probably already out in the 2025 range is the way we're looking at this. The administration may choose to move it back, move it forward, we don't know, but that's sort of the order that it can happen and still be doable without overwhelming the facilities group and shutting all the buildings down at once. We also looked at the Science Health Careers building. The addition really changed the way that building works. Now it's time to go back and revisit some of the spaces that couldn't be done at that time, and even strengthen the connection between that building and the Health Careers building. It's a little awkward right now They don't really feel connected. So a chance to really reimagine that. Upgrade classrooms and labs, bring in opportunities for a super lab in the science program, resolve deferred maintenance issues, and possibly even really reimagine how that building may look from the new quad. Right now it's hidden by the liberal arts building. It's not much to look at from that side. Between the renovation and the addition of that, probably a $6 million project in today's dollars. Also looking at the athletics recreation building, create more opportunities for student activity, student fitness, with other programs out of there dedicated to recreation and athletics. Possibly even providing an expansion for student fitness center that really expands on what's already, what tight space is already in there. A project like that, and again, this one will deal with a lot of deferred maintenance issues. A project like that's probably around $4 million. Now we get to the long term. This is the dream stuff. This is really looking at placeholders, ideas. This is where we pushed to really create some good conversation around this. Knowing there are places on campus where we want to be thoughtful not to put a building, we also have to think about where buildings can go. And one of the opportunities, again, looking out distant enough future, the possibility that student transportation to campus will have changed by that point, that the demand for the amount of parking may not be what it is now. We don't know, but this is an opportunity. At the far west end of campus, the possibility of student housing was something that was not in the master plan, was not a request, but is an opportunity. It can provide housing for students, it can provide housing for summer programs, it can coordinate with student life programs to really create a sense of activity on campus. You see the new student housing over at U of M Dearborn. That's fantastic, but it's across the street. So there's no connection to come back. You have no reason to come back to campus because everything is in the building, except for classes. So maximize facility use, create opportunities for revenue growth. That's an opportunity site out there, along with the possibility of even reintroducing an athletic field, soccer field, at the south end of it. Repurposing the administration building. If with this collection of buildings that we're currently in right now, as the space frees up over time, the opportunity to get IT, facilities, and the administration over to that building, along with the University Center and the Welcome Center, it all operationally makes a lot of sense together in the long term. Freeze this building up. We're just thinking what could happen. We don't know if this will happen, but what could happen. It can be repurposed as needed to support new programs, connect with community by providing community outreach programs. That might even play over into the old Child Development Center. And really, how do you interact with the community at the front of campus so they don't have to drive around figuring out where to go? There's a lot of opportunity space at the front. There are also future development site opportunities here at the north end of campus, here in the northwest part of the parking lot. Both of these with great views back to the Rouge River ravine. And that's the administration pushing their carts over to their new home. Most importantly is really think about how this impacts site. Sidewalks are tough to navigate. The facilities has done a great job taking them out where they aren't needed, repairing them where that's needed. How can you take that to the next step? A number of students arrive by bus. How can you make them feel like they've got a privileged entry onto campus to really connect out to the main street? So there's an opportunity to create a strong identity visible from Ford Road to the north, strengthen the connection between all these core buildings, the library, liberal arts, science, dining, culinary. Improve the entry sequence both from the south using those art gardens, but also from the east from the bus stop. And then create opportunities kind of everywhere for students to showcase their work, whether it's art projects or welding projects or construction projects, build a house outside. Again, really find ways to pull people on, to invite people into campus. Draw all these opportunities and open them up so they feel less unsafe, less confined. One of the other things we wanted to take a look at was, there we are, creating the campus quad. Creating a large event space really at the center of campus, reducing the number of walkways that pass through there, strengthening the identity of the buildings surrounding that, and improving navigation on campus just by simplifying the sidewalks. Another neat opportunity is with student dining in this facility here is take those concrete patio spaces and create an area, tree-lined, inviting space. If programs are going to become less tied to the traditional academic calendar, if you've got more students here in the warmer months, there's an opportunity to really connect with the outdoors. So there's the extent of the event space where the old liberal arts used to sit. And then the idea of these smaller areas that aren't quite so large, that are more pedestrian scaled, what those might, I'll show you what those might look like in a second. Here's an aerial view of what campus looks like from the south, looking toward the quad in the north. Again, really opening this space up. Here's that the proposed new liberal arts building, potentially connecting over to the library, really blending how those two buildings interact with each other, putting student academic support, student services, student outreach in this, and then creating a gateway as you enter campus, really opening this area up. And you can see by moving facilities, this now becomes, it really celebrates the front of the building that's pretty well hidden right now. Just some examples of what those outdoor dining areas could look like to really encourage students to spend time on campus and not retreat to their car. Other things on campus identity, really standardizing lighting, site furnishing, simplifying the walkways, looking for opportunities to reduce maintenance by incorporating native plant species, letting the ravine grow back up onto campus in a bigger way. Reduce the number of emergency call boxes. There are a bunch, more so than we've seen on any campus. And at some point, it can move from creating a sense of safety to creating a sense that, is there a reason for all of these boxes? And we looked at the reports, we looked at the statistics from the safety reports. It's actually, as far as campuses go, a very safe campus. Create fewer spaces for incidents to happen, improve lighting so people feel safer at night, the need for those call boxes diminishes. And then again, oops, I jumped ahead here, strengthen the visibility from off campus. What's nice is a lot of this has happened. The signage, the banners have really started to create connections between buildings that don't necessarily look a lot alike. And also celebrate the programs. If you take a close look, they all really tie into what program is in that building that they're next to. One of the things we looked at, both as an opportunity to engage potential donors on campus, but also create an identity. Early on there was a talk, do you put a tower in? You put a clock tower of some sort in, that traditional campus clock tower. One of the challenges is to make it visible from Ford Road. We did a sightline check, 400 feet tall. Crazy, crazy tall tower. And even at that, hard to see. So we looked at sight lines. You can actually see a slightly shortened version of the tower. That's quite a distance, and there are trees in the way for most of it, which is what drove the height of that up. So if you're going to create something that can happen soon, something that can engage donors, something that creates an identity, that wasn't it. So what we looked at is, if you look for opportunities to connect main campus to North Campus, create something that's visible and dynamic, that changes as you drive by, that can be seen from a distance, something that's probably much more cost effective and gives more donors an opportunity to be part of it. What does that look like? If you've ever driven in or out of LAX, you've seen the light pylons. If you've ever been downtown Lincoln, Nebraska, you've seen the light pylons. They really create a neat identity. They create a dynamic parallax effect as you move around campus. They help orient you. They pull you in, and they can also connect across that parking lot. So, I apologize, it's a little washed out here. Starting here at the heart of the quad and moving straight north up to the north edge of the campus, along a sidewalk that will allow students to come in, and that it's incorporated with new drop-off lanes to simplify student drop-off and pickup. But a series of light pylons, something that could be different donors for every pylon, different programs emphasized by the color of the pylon, the ability for technology to change how the LED lighting looks and maybe becomes a very dynamic thing to see at night. Something that really changes the identity of the campus from a distance. And what's neat about this is it doesn't really, this one isn't tied to any time frame. It can happen whenever. And it can be a potentially even a good kickoff to other projects on campus. It's one of my favorite views. Right now, if you stand in this spot, you're looking at the side of the bookstore. The library is right over here. Way off in the distance is technology buildings here. Way off in the distance is the health building. This is the proposed, one of the proposed ideas for a new liberal arts building. Again, really rough idea. This is not, I guarantee you, this is not how it's going to look if and when it ever happens. But this is an idea to generate a lot of conversation. You can see one of these light pylons, and ways to draw people into campus from the north. And here are those art gardens drawing people in from the south. Student engagement, student activities, putting that student life on display instead of hiding it in the back of another building. Here is looking alongside the health science building, coming up the other side of the new liberal arts space. And again, just simplifying the finishes and connecting, no matter where you come from, connecting you with these landmarks. So essentially, that's the plan where it stands right now. We present this again tomorrow in another open forum, and in a few weeks present it with your feedback to the board for their approval to take this from a draft plan to an adopted plan. I'll zoom in a little bit there, and I'm going to open it wide up, I'm sure. I hope you have questions, especially ones I can answer. There are a combination of funding mechanisms for a lot of these projects. Things like site work, things like the pylons would lean toward the donor side, looking for those opportunities. Bonding is another way of doing it locally. The state does have funding available for academics, for academic facilities, and they tend to have a focus. Right now the focus is on technology education, very much what's going on in the technology building. For community colleges, the state can provide 50% of the funding for a project. The college is required to fund the other 50%, and it's really up to the college to determine the mechanism to do that. But examples would be probably about a decade ago now, Oakland Community College went through a major deferred maintenance, I think $90 million worth of deferred maintenance, went out for a bond throughout Oakland County to raise the funds for that and succeeded. Used that both to repair buildings, upgrade buildings, but also replace ones that just weren't working anymore and change the face of a couple campuses, I think the Highland Lakes campus, the Auburn Hills campus, changed the face of those campuses considerably in a few cases. So there really are different approaches. Our job right now is to make sure the college has everything it needs to figure out how it wants to move forward. Yeah, so what other buildings are being demolished under this? The Learning Technology Center, Liberal Arts, the bookstore facilities building, that which requires, part of what that's going to require is rethinking where the boilers are, because they're in that building right now, but they need replacing. So it's looking at putting a new system online in the new liberal arts building, which allows you to, and this is a big part of it, phasing is a huge part, allows you to get the new system up and running before you decommission the old system. The last thing you want to do is tear a building down and be stuck without a place, without boilers or whatever, which really, frankly, really complicates the existing liberal arts building because it provides the cooling to almost all the campus. One of the issues with the liberal arts building is the number of classrooms it contains. There's no place, we don't know how the college would deal with that if they shut that whole building down. So if it were determined to renovate that building, it would have to be phased. It's not something out of the ordinary. We just completed a project at Lansing Community College on their Arts and Sciences building, completely reimagined it, and had to phase the project because that's where all their classrooms were, most of the classrooms. The existing building is somewhere between 90 and 100,000 square feet. The new one is about 130,000. What's driving that is absorbing the offices out of the Learning Technology Center, bringing student activities over, but also just providing classrooms that are the right size, that allow for ease of reconfiguration. So most of the liberal arts classrooms are just too small. The super lab conversation that's been going on kind of continuously throughout the master plan, the idea of creating that the large lab space with, or several large lab spaces with the general equipment for that open entry, open exit lab, surrounded by specialty spaces, classrooms, equipment that needs to be separated off or needs to have limited access, faculty, meeting spaces, brainstorming spaces, so kind of surrounding that central hub. If you go to the tech shop over in Allen Park, you look at their main lab and then a lot of the support spaces around, that's one model, that's one approach for how to do that. One opportunity here, like I said, this courtyard, possibly enclosing that and completely changing the way all the rooms that surround it, especially on the second level, interact with that. That's the long-term plan, either an expansion here or an enclosure here, hopefully connecting at some level with what's going on in the automotive transportation area. Short-term, though, with that grant money that came in for the equipment, before any, and this is probably going to start the conversation within a couple weeks, we're going to meet with the faculty, we're going to meet with the department heads and talk long-term. Figure out what's the long-term goal for this, block it out at a really rough level for the whole building, looking out 5 years or so. After which, immediately following that, we're going to focus on what do we need to do now to make this equipment successful the minute it hits the floor. Will the short term be the ideal? We hope as close to that as possible. Funding is limited, time is limited. But the short-term plan is get it in, get it working, but do it in a way that we don't have to undo a bunch of stuff for the long-term changes. Right now, if you go to the library, between the library and the Learning Resource Center, it was a limitation of how it was constructed at the time. There's a wall. You cannot get from one to the other without going outside. I'm getting nods from back here. Finding a way to connect those. Making the library more than just a box of books, but making it a place where you can everybody can find information. I can go to Google and prove anything, or think I can prove anything. What the library's role really needs to be is to house the important information that still needs to be in print, but also create opportunities for students to turn that into useful knowledge. So that's reference, that's technology, that's strengthening that connection to tutoring. We found in a lot of the campuses where we work, the stigma of tutoring is gone. In a lot of ways, it's gone. I may be great in math, but I'm terrible with how to use an apostrophe. Please help. And then help me figure out how to make that into a presentation, because I'm not doing term paper anymore. I'm doing a PowerPoint podcast. Bringing a lot of that together in one space, blurring the lines, because from the student's perspective, and this is not meant as offense to any department, they don't care about the man behind the curtain. They mentor me, offer me assistance, make it less about the transaction and more about the relationship, start to bring those things together from the student's perspective, and really move to a mentorship model where they're encouraged to do it themselves. And there's a ton of opportunity in that. in that building in the library and on the upper levels of the Learning Resource Center to really create that one stop for all of that student academic support. The proposed idea right now is to create a bookstore in the library. Potentially something, and again, that would be something in the order of things would have to happen obviously before the building came down, before the liberal arts got built. The nice part is liberal arts building is much later, several years after the library. Bookstores are changing. How the books are delivered, how students order them, the types of things that are sold in the bookstore, the other opportunity for non-book sales. To put that again in a space where the students are, we think there's a lot of opportunity. And the gentleman next to you has yet to tell me that he doesn't want that in the library. He may corner me on the way out, I don't know. And I get you a lot of vending machines. No. The hope of being able to connect liberal arts to the library is to really create that cafe space for, light snacks. If you're head down studying, every once in a while you need to take a break and blow off a little steam. Hopefully food, coffee, Red Bull and coffee. It'll be a space that you'll have trouble kicking students out of. Child Development Center right now, we're looking at a study on how to reuse that building in the future. The Child Development Program, there are so many other options, one actually literally right across the street. They're very difficult for community colleges to run because of the hit and miss scheduling of students that have very different schedules throughout the day. The plan is, if closed, if that operation relocates, that building, it's got opportunity for community space. It's a beautiful space. It does need some work, some maintenance work on it, but it's got opportunity for connection to the community. That might be a great space for the foundation. When you start bringing in groups and potential donors, it could make a great, you've got this welcome center for future students, the possibility of a welcome center for the community. So we don't know yet. Again, that's something that came up so close to the end of the master plan, that conversation, we really haven't had a chance to address it yet. But it is something that the college is weighing right now, and we're actually supposed to start a study on what to do there in the next few weeks. With the reconfiguration of if student activities moves into the new liberal arts, frees up space, and the idea that the bookstore, sort of the retail part of the campus, the bookstore, the food service could be together. One of the things that I know came up was in reimagining the Kuhlman dining room, the main dining room in that building where the students eat, is soften up the surfaces, change out the furniture to more varied furniture, but in the points of the square, put a stage in. I know that one was discussed as an opportunity for a small raised platform, something that could be used, poetry readings, it could be used for two-person performance, it could be used for music. I also know that a lot of conversation was put in about how to improve the food offerings for the students. Master plan really can't solve that one, but one of the recommendations really came out to connect it with the culinary arts program in a different way, elevate the quality of the food offerings, make more efficient use of the kitchen space, because some of the areas are almost shut down back there because they just aren't needed. I forget where it bubbled up, but the idea that you could have students or even local vendors do almost like a food truck model, not bringing in food trucks, but rotating what's available, creating opportunity to grow an audience. The challenge with national brands is if you can't provide enough sales, they don't want you. Subway's pretty good. McDonald's is pretty tough. to get in. I know Lansing, if you get a chance to go up to Lansing Community College, their student center, the Gannon building, they used to have a pool. They got rid of the pool. That's now their main student dining space. Totally changed the front of that side of campus. They've got a couple, they've got a vendor who brought in some national brands, and the students were lined up before the place even officially opened. Short term, oh, here we are. Near-term projects looking out the next 5 years, so 2015 to 2020. Midterm proposals, probably starting a lot of those ideas of moving facilities, doing liberal arts, the fine arts renovation, the hospitality, culinary arts work between 2020 and 2030. Because these are multi-year projects, and you can't stack them right on top of each other. You'll exhaust everybody. And then looking at that long-term, probably starting no sooner than 2025, looking out for, if like student housing were to come on board, that's at least a decade away in all likelihood. And the possibility of moving the administration, and that's 2025, kind of forever. We don't know. Typically on a campus, what you'll see is within about 5 years after a master plan, you'll go through another strategic planning cycle. We like to see them not on top of each other because they inform each other. And then a few years after that, you'll see another master plan, driven by administrative changes, driven by economic changes, enrollment changes. So I would wager a guess in this case, by the time you hit 2020, 2022 in there, it'll be time to revisit this and refine it. What we like to do is look beyond just ADA and really look at the idea of universal design. When possible, it should not be steps that go up to the main entry, and if you're in a wheelchair, sorry, you got to use the side. Provide areas that work for everyone. I mean, you're right, community college, you've got students from 18 to 80, different physical abilities, different cultural backgrounds, different languages, all those things. And to think about that, it's a lot going on at once, but to think about that is important. And what we hope is in the master plan, we get to things, you know, the steps down to that lower patio area. Well, it worked, it maybe worked back in the 60s. But the idea that this is a grade that's accessible, that the entry to this will be fully accessible, the connections will be accessible, and just darn it, to have enough room to open a door. So it's catching all those little things. So yeah, it's paramount to what we do. It danced around 3 or 4 spots. It landed in the liberal arts building. Again, putting it where most of the students are. Probably not in, not front and center, highly prominent space, but locating it partly because it's where the students are, partly because it's central. The issue with and this is an issue with deferred maintenance, is some of the stuff, and we took a good close look at that building, and we recorded all of those issues. Facilities is very aware of what the issues are, and very aware of the costs that are associated with that. The master plan is really looking at trying to solve, improving the look of the space, improving the usability of the space, and all the leaks and all those issues. One of the things we never want to do is say, you're going to have to wait until then. The facility improvements, if there's a leak, it shouldn't have to wait 10 years. So
I completely understand that, but they already came through and they told us to renovate that room is $90,000. But you're talking about this plan of millions and millions and millions, but you can't do the $90,000 repairs that are needed right now. What about now?
well, that's
This
part
is
that.
beautiful, and I love how you
It's,
I feel like I'm in the trenches right now.
I wish I had a solid answer as far as the facilities point of view. The facilities director is aware. They've been doing a lot with roofs, getting a lot of I think almost all of the roof leaks, and there were many, getting those all addressed. What we're really looking at is the bigger infrastructural issues, the heating and cooling systems that are just, they're done. They've worked well, they've been well maintained, they are at the end of their useful service life. So the master plan's looking at that big goal. I'm going to lamely try to use painting here. That's the masterpiece, but you've got to do the study sketches. And the study sketches in this case would be dealing with those issues. Again, this is the facility assessment we did is very intensive, very detailed, and it's the first thing of that level of detail that communicated the priorities and the price that they've been able to work with, and we just finished it. Actually, I'm doing a few more buildings next week. So it's all in their hands. It's just so fresh. I don't know what their solution is going to be for that. I know we actually did interviews, I think in this room, with academic and non-academic department heads. So we were bringing in the associate deans, and when we work on a plan, one of the approaches is to really do a representational discussion. So working with that representative, having them go back and have the conversations about the issues. So it was kept, the steering team that made the decisions was obviously a smaller, made the recommendations was a smaller group. But as far as communication with the campus at large, it was working representationally.